that typical first question of, can you just give us a little bit about your background? How does someone become a transformational spiritual teacher, author, a host of an amazing podcast? How'd you get to be who you are?
Yeah, it's a bit of a unique, maybe unique story. It wasn't unique to me because I lived it. For those that don't know me, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. I live in Los Angeles. So I feel like I'm a citizen of the world, from everywhere and from nowhere. How I started was I was always on the path in some way. To a degree, I was born into a path of spirituality. One of my first memories, as a kid, I was very empathetic. So I always felt a deep feeling and sensitivity for people's pain. And there was a part of me as a young boy that wanted to alleviate people's suffering in some way. And so I remember being around age 6, age 7, lost in the crowd. And I saw this crippled woman crawling on the floor. She picks up the sand that this man walks on, wipes it on her face. And so you could call that a miracle. And and he didn't know, he was just walking. Week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear, and people stand up out of wheelchairs. And the same man whose sand she picked up would look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, "Why in this wheelchair? Stand up." The same man would look at someone who would come in with crutches and say, "Hey, throw your crutches away," or someone who would come in unable to see, touch their eyes and they would see. This environment of miracles was how I grew up, a mystical environment. And this man was my father, and he built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa. He was a very metaphysical, spiritual type of guy. And so I grew up in a very spiritual environment. My mother's Buddhist, she's Japanese. So it was quite eclectic. And he also had a huge church in London, about 3,000 to 4,000 people every Sunday. And so for me, it was interesting because I didn't think anything unusual about it. I didn't think anything different about it. I didn't think anything strange about it, to be honest. I think the blessing was, because it felt so normal to me, I grew up without a sense of limitation. I grew up with a sense of possibility. I grew up with a sense of believing that anything was possible. And so when I was age 8, my speaking career began, because I was thrown into the audience at age 8 and my father said, "Speak." And that, unsurprisingly, words started coming out of my mouth and I began speaking. And then age 14 was a very pivotal moment in my life, because I was ordained as a minister in my father's church and pretty much announced and given the mandate to take over my father's ministry. And this was huge because there were hundreds of thousands of followers in my father's church, all the hopes and dreams pinned on me. My entire life was being planned out by everyone else and my father, but something didn't feel right. Something didn't feel in alignment. Something didn't feel true for me. And the truth is I was too afraid at that young age to speak my truth. I was too afraid. My fear was, if I dared to be who I am, if I dared to speak my truth, I'm going to lose my father's love. And I think so many of us, we allow fear to hijack us. We allow fear to limit us. We allow fear to stop us from doing what we're here to do and expressing what we're here to express and sharing our gifts with the world and fully being who we are. Because if I dare to be myself, you won't love me. And so I said nothing and I went along with it. And for 4 years, I went through this deep internal turmoil of trying to fit into society's, my parents, my father's mold of how he wanted me to be. And it got to the point when I turned 18, it was too painful. I looked into my future and I saw that I could be successful by everyone else's standards. I could be successful by the world standards. And I looked into I felt this huge calling to come to the US. I was a kid and I felt this, my soul was pulling me to come to America. I wanted to go into the self-help field. I wanted to go into the spiritual field. I wanted to write books because on my father's bookshelf were like thousands of self-help books, everyone from Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Louise Hay, and Tony Robbins, and Zig Ziglar, and, the old ultimate motivational icons to the Eastern mystics. And I devoured these books, and at that young age began to really ask myself the questions: what's the purpose of life? And is the purpose of life? I would look around and I would see at least the majority of people growing up in London just like zombies, waking up, going to work, waking up, going to work, tick-tock every single day. Nobody seemed happy on the bus. Nobody seems happy on the train. And because I was sensitive, I began to ask myself the question, like, what is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? What is the freaking purpose of all of this? Is it just to wake up, go to work, make money, die, make babies, go on vacation, buy a house, and then die? Like, surely there has to be more to existence for why we incarnate. And so I was full of these questions, and I looked into my future at age 18, felt the soul calling. And I think sometimes what your soul guides you to do doesn't always make sense to your mind or your logic, or isn't always convenient. And I felt my soul pulling me and guiding me. And then I looked into my future, the expected path. I thought, well, I could follow that path, and age 20, age 30, age 40, age 50, age 60, on and on. But if I don't have myself, and I don't have my soul, and I don't have my own integrity, then it was just like a soul betrayal. And I felt such a pain of the sense of committing soul suicide that I knew what I had to do, and I knew I had to leave. I knew I had to speak my truth. And so I made a very, at the time, courageous decision. We often hear like, well, you should be fearless. I was full of fear. I was terrified, but I decided that my life was worth more. That if I began to live a lie now, many of us do, we live the lie to get the love that we think we want. And then we end up having to live that lie for the rest of our lives. And I realized if I live this life now, I'm in a prison for the rest of my life that will be hard to break out of. And so I spoke to my father. Cut a long story short, we didn't speak for 2 years. And that was really heart-wrenching for me, but I didn't really have a choice is what it felt like. And longer story short, I left everything behind. Ended up winning a green card in the green card lottery. Wow. And that's what brought me to the DV1 green card lottery. And that's what brought me to the US. That's what brought me to America. 2 suitcases, $800 in my pocket, just following a dream, a kid following a dream and following my soul. And this is why I really believe, for those listening, and we can break it down and go into to much more as you ask questions. But what I do know without a shadow of a doubt is if you follow your soul, and if you follow your truth, if you follow your soul, you follow your truth, you will always end up in the right place. Even though you may have no idea in the moment, even though it may make no sense in the moment, you will, if you don't compromise your soul, you will end up in the right place, even though the route that you take may not make sense. And that's what brought me to the US. I went and found mentors and teachers and authors and many of the self-help icons, and then studied with some of them, went and traveled the world afterwards. I went to Thailand, studied with monks. I went to India, I went to northern Spain, walked the Camino. I went to Israel, studied with rabbis, and ended up in India. And that really cracked my heart open and transformed me from the inside out to really get to know who I truly am beyond my conditioning. And it was really out of that that I wanted to come back to the West and to America and help people. I felt like I had no money, no fame, no nothing, no platform, but I really wanted to help people experience the freedom that I felt. I felt such a deep sense of freedom that I wanted everyone to feel that. And so I ended up working with one person, one-on-one. Had no idea what I was doing 20 years ago. And then one person turned into 2 and 3 and 4, and people started coming from around the world, and small groups, large groups, and then 2 best-selling books. And here we are. Well, that's the short version.
That's perfect. And clearly following your true calling and listening to your inner knowing and your intuition has worked out for you, because it's brought you to it's given you a lot of success in the world. You have a ton of followers now. Your book, I've read it, fantastic book, The Magic of Surrender. We'll talk about that a little bit. And I've seen the responses that your work has been getting, and the reactions that people have to your podcast, and you're helping a lot of people, and they're really uplifted and inspired, and you're helping people, find their true selves and figure out how to find fulfillment in their own lives, which is fantastic. So I guess following your inner knowing is the right thing to do. If we talk about your book for a second, The Magic of Surrender, can you define surrender and just tell us why you consider it so important that you wrote a whole book about it? Like what is it that we are surrendering, or what is it that we are surrendering to? And certainly surrender doesn't, when most people hear that word, they're going to think it has a negative connotation, like like we just accept everything that life throws at us, like injustices and bad situations.
Sure. So I think I really believe that surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do. I believe that surrender is the password to freedom. I believe that surrender is the key, the real secret to manifestation at a whole nother level. I believe that all of the great ones, if you look at the truly great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, at some point they all surrendered themselves to life, to a vision that was bigger than themselves, to their soul calling. They surrendered themselves to something bigger. And it was in that surrender that they transcended their human limitations. It was in that surrender that they transcended their own ego. And in that, going beyond their own human limitations, they tapped into another dimension of their true potential and life. So surrender to life, right? Surrender to the universe, surrender to your soul. In that surrender, life was able to move through them and use them and manifest through them in ways that they could not have planned or imagined for themselves. And I think that's the beauty. And so, yes, I think we need a redefinition or a reframe of surrender in our culture today. In our culture today, surrender isn't seen as so exciting. For instance, when I got the guidance to write the book about surrender, it was not the book I wanted to write. I thought I was going to write a completely different book. I had all sorts of ideas for the book I was going to write. And I was like, this book would sell. This is the book my clients would want. And this is the book publishers would want. And this would be a great best-selling book. But I really felt the none of those were right. And I felt the authenticity of the book that was seeking to happen. So I had to surrender to the book about surrender that was seeking to be written in myself, because sometimes we have all these ideas of what we think should be and how we think life should be, and we try to force life. And so I want people to just understand that we've seen surrender as weak, as passive, that if you surrender, it means giving up. It means waving the white flag. You're going to be a doormat. You're going to be a victim. You're going to be left behind. You're going to be taken advantage of. It means like wearing robes, selling everything, going to the Himalayas and have a begging bowl and shaving your head and giving up all possessions and being a hermit or being a yogi in some far off land. That's not surrender. That we think that if we surrender, we won't manifest our goals, dreams, and desires. That if we surrender, we will get less in life. I'm actually saying, what if you truly surrendered? If you really understood, which will break down what surrender is, what if you didn't get less, but you got more? What if you got more than you could even imagine for yourself? More as in beyond your imagination, beyond your own mental ego's capacity to imagine and project and goal set beyond your wildest dream. That's why I called the book The Magic of Surrender, not like the art or the power, but the magic of surrender. And in magic, not like a David Copperfield, but in magic, it's that which is beyond what you can imagine. And I think when we let go, when we surrender, that's when often we get more than we could even have imagined, right? And so surrender is to let go of control, or I'm going to say the illusion of control, because we have the illusion that we're in control, but control is really the master addiction. We can go deep into that in a second if you want. But it's to let go of control. It's to let go of trying to force life to fit your little limited ego's idea of what you think it should be, because sometimes we think we know what should be and we think we know what we want, but the reality is, from the ego's perspective, we're not able to see the beauty and the infinite possibilities and the magic of the universe, right? And so it's to stop trying to manipulate and force life to fit your small idea. It's to let go of the idea of who you think you should be in a life you think you should be living, so that you can truly be available and truly be open and truly be receptive to the life, the authentic unfolding of life that is seeking to happen without you trying to make something into something. So surrender is the allowing, it's the availability, it's the openness, it's the invitation. It's when you take the limits off of life. Many times we don't realize in our attachment to what we think we want. We get so attached to, it's got to be this person, I got to marry this person, it's got to be this job, it's got to be this situation. That attachment creates a limitation. That attachment, we hold so tightly that we're not open to more. We think it has to be this. And so surrender is being open and available so that life can unfold in the way that it needs to unfold. Now, that doesn't mean sitting there and doing nothing. That doesn't mean sitting there being passive and just saying, I'm going to sit on my couch and watch Netflix and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Like that, that's just laziness. I'm going to sit here and just sit here and, you know, if the stairmaster shows up at my door, no, you got to get your ass out of the house and surrender to your deeper commitment to, let's say, being healthy and get to the gym. And so surrender is to feel your deepest truth, right? You feel what's most true, most authentic, not just what you think up here, what's most true, what's most authentic, what's most real, what's most sincere, is to feel the depth and the truth of that. And then, like, what it is that is seeking to happen, then you can align your mind, your thoughts, your strategy, your resources, your actions based on the deep alignment of your deepest truth, your deepest integrity. And once you're in alignment, then you go into action. Then you give 100%. Then you go full on. You might work 20 hours a day. You might work more than you've ever worked in your life, because you're now surrendering to the authentic mission that is truly yours. Like Gandhi worked. Just so people that might think, I'm going to drop out and be a homeless person. No, Gandhi worked hard. Mother Teresa worked hard. Mandela worked hard. You know, Bruce Lee worked hard. Mother Teresa worked hard. I mean, these people worked hard, nonstop, because they were surrendered to the calling. And so surrender is that deeper commitment, because now you're going in the right direction. So it doesn't mean just doing nothing. So let me leave it right there. That's the sort of framework of surrender.
That's a perfect answer. Man, I love just listening to you talk. I just letting you go is so much fun. Your energy is fantastic.
Thanks,
so yeah, I get that then. Yeah, we're surrendering more. Yeah, the control, like you said, our ego wants to control and grasp everything. And when you surrender that illusion of control, because we never really have it to begin with, then you can just be open to what is in the moment and where life wants to go, and maybe hear that inner voice inside of yourself. Can I talk to you? I got one more question about the word faith, because faith comes up a little bit in the book here and there. When you're writing the beautiful passages about your mother in the beginning and her dealing with cancer, you talked about how she was so at peace at the end because she was powered by faith, I think were the words that you might have used. And I'm really curious about this faith. It ties into what you were just talking about, because it's like, I understand that our egos have their own plans, and we get attached to our ego's plans and so on. But you talk about in the book how life and the universe, or God, whatever you want to call it, has a larger plan for us. And the faith I think you're talking about is faith in that the universe and God has a larger plan for us, if we can just surrender our ego's attachments to its own small plans. But I have to admit, I've always had trouble with, I picture the universe as something that's just simply unfolding. But I've never really understood how it has a purpose or a plan. But the idea that the universe or life wants something for me. Can you expand on this? Your faith that the universe does have a larger plan for us?
I think a larger intelligence. I think a larger unfolding. Just from the standpoint of, let's say, if you cut your finger, right? You don't even have to have faith. You don't have to be a good person. You could be a drug dealer. You could be, Hitler. You could be. there's an innate intelligence inside of your body that knows how to heal itself, that knows how to bring itself back into its highest expression, which is wholeness, right?
Gotcha.
And so when I say plan, let's just say your highest expression, whatever that is, that your ego mind from its limit, and we can talk about ego just so people understand that if we want, but the ego mind isn't able to see the highest expression. Like wholeness is your body's highest expression. You cut it, it's not in its highest expression. There is an evolutionary intelligence that knows how to bring your body into that harmony if we just keep it clean, right? And so there is a highest expression of what we're seeking to express into and become that we don't have to like plan. It's this, it's that. But there is a harmony that at the deeper spiritual level, it's that realization of our divine nature as infinite beings, that we are whole, perfect, complete, but we've kind of lost touch with that because we're locked inside the patterns of our conditioning. And so ultimately, let me just go a bit up and then come down. The higher level is we are souls, we incarnate into this human experience. We're souls, we're spiritual beings incarnate into this human experience in order to learn, to grow, to evolve. We're here to learn, to grow, to evolve. That's why we're here. And perhaps there's certain lessons that we are here to learn, to grow, to evolve into. And so life is a school. I like to see life as a school. And I like to see every experience, relationship, situation as part of the curriculum for our soul's evolution. And I think if we can understand that we are souls, whole, perfect beings, and we incarnate into this density, this human experience full of duality to learn, to grow, and evolve, then we can shift our relationship to life and what's happening and what's not happening. And rather than seeing it as events, random events that are happening and shit that's happening and one-dimensionally, when we have this deeper understanding, we can look at life from that soul perspective and go, okay, even though I don't understand why this is happening, if life is a school and life is part of the evolutionary process for my soul's evolution, then everything is serving that. Mm-hmm. Everything is serving that evolution. Every heartbreak, every bankruptcy, every betrayal, every effed up situation. I may not understand it in the moment, but if it's a classroom, you know, like you go to university, you take physics, you take geometry, it's sometimes you have to do some really hard, you know, equations. Uh-huh. So, okay, I don't understand it. I'm a little pissed off by it, but there's something that every situation is serving. There is a deeper plan that it's serving in the evolutionary unfolding of what I'm seeking to learn. And so I think that just perspective can shift. Hopefully that helps your relationship to life. And you don't have to understand what what it is. But I think in a situation when we have that understanding, and then we can surrender and ask ourselves, not like, oh, why is this happening to me? And I don't understand the plan. The plan ultimately for our incarnation is your evolution. That's the bottom line. That's the purpose for why we freaking incarnate. We think it's to get rich, make money, be famous, have a six-pack, have a beach body, have a Lamborghini, you know, be the next, you know, Oprah Winfrey. But ultimately, all of that is simply serving you and I, our awakening and soul's evolution. Doesn't mean we can't have fun. Doesn't mean we can't make $1 billion. Doesn't mean we can't, you know, enjoy the experiences here. But let us not forget that the plan, in quotation marks, is ultimately always our evolution. And so long as we're focused on that, no matter what is happening, we're always on plan. Even when we think we're not, we're always on plan. Even when we're in the worst moment, if we can ask ourselves, okay, what is my soul seeking to learn in this situation? I don't understand. I'm pissed off. I'm mad. I'm confused. But what is my soul seeking to learn? Because if we learn and grow and evolve and understand and realize more of who we are, then we will begin to, let's say, graduate from that experience, from that situation, from that pattern, from that dynamic, and we'll tend to attract a different situation. And so I think when we kind of see life as that evolutionary process, then it allows us to have a bit more faith. Like, I may not see, faith is like, I may not see why or understand why this is happening now, but I trust that some reason it's serving my evolution. That's the key. It's serving I may not like the experience, but this situation is serving my evolution. And when we focus on that, then we can have the faith. And then often what will happen is that when we learn the lesson and we move from that situation, after the fact, 3 months later, a month later, a week later, a year later, 10 years later, we look back and go, I see why that needed to happen. Mm-hmm. I see why I needed to lose my job and move back home with my parents, which was so embarrassing. But when I moved home and I went to the coffee shop there, I met my wife. Oh, I see. I see why my business needed to fall apart, so that I could be so humble, so that I could be finally open, so that I would then shift careers and then, meet that person. And so anyway, I'm kind of...
That was